Another important issue is, of course, how to learn this, how to teach, etc., etc. And I want to give you two examples that I think is valuable and that we now use in a much broader sense after a start. In fact, all back to 2014. The foundation has given some funding for projects. 6 projects were selected. Now, I was on the steering board for this project here. Now, and of course the organization and so on. Now, the chairperson and the patient, a patient from each of these six projects, they were invited at a meeting 1 month after they got the funding. They were invited to come for a meeting, 6 hours meeting at the institution, and where they shared their plans, because we have read about their plans for PPI in the application, but now it was real life. They should get started recruiting patients, etc., etc. So at that point, they shared their experiences. They were so, they found this so valuable. They asked us for another meeting, and they came for a meeting about 2 years after start, where they talked about the barriers they have met and the successes, and exchange experiences from the side of researchers, but also from the side of patients. Now, 4 years after, we made a interview with each of the PIs of the leaders of the project, and to evaluate. And we have collected the evaluation and the learning from this, and they strongly recommend this kind of team building among research groups as a methodology. The model is now applied by more foundations and boards as a kind of getting started learning from each other. Now, the other example of shared learning is with PhD students from the 4 universities of Denmark. We have made a training course on PPI. We made the first in 2017, I've one each year since. It's 3 days course. On day 1, these PhD students, they describe on day 1 their expectations and the goal they have for participating. They get a short introduction to patient and public involvement, and there is a presentation of a case. This is followed on the next day by a visiting faculty, visiting lecturer from UK. In fact, the same person for all the 3 courses on patient and researchers' roles, 2 more cases, and then open auditorium. Then there's a break of 3 weeks where they prepare their assignments, and they should write up plans for how to introduce PPI in their PhD project. In the planning of maybe they're in the planning of the project, some are already almost finished, and some are in the middle. And how would they apply PPI, etc., etc. They meet each other, 2 groups of 12, and we spend the whole day where they present their cases on PPI. Now these students are the presenters, and we end up on day 3 by asking each of the students to tell about what is my personal plan for further PPI activities. Now, we have learned that these PhD students have been brought to a much higher level of understanding, and they go back to their institutions and their research groups and tell about this, and we see that this is a way to introduce PPI also in institutions that haven't been part of this so far. Now we will turn to the patient and public involvement in research at the project level, or the bottom up. And over the years, I have been able, together with the the project I'm chairing to have contact and be asked to come and lecture and make workshops, etc., for more than 60 individual projects. And just to show you that now PPI is really applied in a very broad sense all over the spectrum of kind of diseases. You can read here cancer in neurology, in the chronic diseases, rheumatology, diabetes, in rehabilitation, in musculoskeletal diseases, low back pain, orthopedics, psychiatric research, etc. Now, just to show that this has now been being applied at the bottom-up level in a wide spectrum. So so during this, we of course have had questions by researchers when we were invited to come and discuss their plans for introducing PPI at the research level. Now, which patients should be invited? These are traditional questions, but and I won't answer because this is not the time for this presentation. But even experienced researchers with PPI still ask these questions: are we right in the kind of patients we invite? How should we introduce? What is the best way to introduce and train patients? Just to say that we learned at one that the feedback to patients after meetings and after taking part in meetings at research groups, etc., is very important. And they also asked which type of research will benefit from PPI. I now showed all the kind of diseases that PPI is applied, but we also have questions like, what about research that uses epidemiology or basic research? Now, and what are the roles of the researchers? These are the standard questions coming up again and again, and not only with beginners, but also with experienced research groups that apply PPI. Now, but one main topic is it worth doing? Because this is, researchers ask for what is the evidence and is it worth doing? Does it pay off? And there are many ways you could answer this. And in this series of webinars, there will be one on monitoring and how to document and so on. And we need that. But I think it's very important for implementation to take note of this. And here I cite one of my colleagues who has also been visiting Denmark on PPI, Christina Staley from UK, who is very experienced in this also as a supporter and teacher. And she says at the beginning of a new research project, the researcher don't know what they don't know until they involve patients, the public. But that's the point. That's the point. You must get started to learn what this is all about. Also, to take note of supporters for the process, because of course, patient and researcher are the key actors in patient and public involvement. But don't forget as supporters, the managers, the funders, all the guidelines that are available. The patient organizations have a lot of experiences. Even the editors of journals give you advice on how to describe this. Some look at this as they make requirements for this funding and so on. But try to turn it upside down and look at all of the activities of the supporters of these like supporters, because they all have the same goal, namely that patient and public involvement become part of the research. Now, the road to success, this is a kind of first sum up, is you should get started. Do small things. Thus, you should support patients as well as researchers. Shared learning, whatever kind of tool you want to use, you should continuously evaluate what works and identify the barriers and share your experiences, join a network, also international. Now, this is the kind of demonstration of what it is. Yes, you can. You will start in the beginning. It seems to be very difficult, but get on the bike, and after a while, you are one of the leaders in this. This is the way to get experience through all the activities that I tried to describe. Now, what is next also in Denmark? Well, of course, bottom-up, as I have described it, is very important. This is where it really happens. But you can't get along without also top-down. And therefore, I just want to point to the fact that by 2017, Denmark now have got a top-down approach that is a national, not only recommendations, but it's part of our research policy that it states that user involvement in research projects should be part of strategic research in Denmark. And just to give an example, in 2018-19, we had to develop a national dementia research strategy. And patient and public involvement became very clear in this strategy, also with a reference to what was written here in the national research strategy, and also how we could learn from the international associations for dementia, Alzheimer, that has a strategy. So this shows that you need a top-down and you need networking, and then you have it. Now, which also brings me back to where I started. It's not about either top-down or bottom-up. It's about top-down and bottom-up, because the values and the engagement of the researchers and the patients drive the PPI from bottom-up. But the understanding and engagement by the supporters drives PP from top-down. So mind the PPI gap. This is to the managers, to those that make policies, but it's also to researchers. Yeah, the learning from implementation in Denmark is that you should share, you should make partnership, you should have network, partnership in training, networking, shared learning, joint evaluation, quality teams where you learn from each other, and the primary drivers are the patients and the research. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the implementation of PPI in Denmark.